Welcome, everybody. We're doing yet another episode this month of Pages Promotions Virtual Book Festival 2020 in autumn. We're having fun with our Halloween theme, and we're investigating new authors, we're discovering their books, and we're learning all about family and work-life balance. We're just having a blast. This festival is a production of Indie Reads TV, and we find our home on CNM TV, and we are super grateful for them. Today, we are going to be talking to J.A. Bullen, also known as Jacob. He writes a plethora of stuff, and we're going to be talking about a couple of his new books. One that's a reprint coming out, and we're going to hopefully pump him for information on his newest release. So thank you very much for coming. Jacob, thank you.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having us.
And Ashlyn and Logan are also joining in because writing at the Bullen house is a family affair. So, Jacob, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what got you started in the writing game?
Just grew up as a country boy in a small town. Entertainment was pretty much just running around outside in the woods and telling stories. Honestly, I'd say that's probably where the writing journey began. So,
awesome. And how many books have you got now published?
Well, currently 6. Number 7 will be out shortly.
And that's 7 is the follow-up to Unbound, correct?
No, it'd be Blood in the Rain Part 2.
Oh, okay. So I have to wait longer for the sequel to Unbound.
Well, I mean, I'll need an editor here shortly for it.
Well, you know, you can find one. I just finished helping Jacob with another of his books, finishing the editing on it, and I had a blast. Such great stories. And that's the one you're going to read from tonight, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can you give us a little bit of tell us the story, the background, set it up for us so that we can follow along?
All right. So Beyond the Amaranthine Veil is the book that I'm reading from tonight. And it's Renaissance era piece about in a world where monsters and magic roam the land rampantly. And there is an organization of people that work through the Cabal that work on keeping these forces in check. And that's not to say that members of their own faction don't cause the chaos that the Templars work through themselves. The scene we're going through is Tristan has actually accepted a job to find a missing sorceress, which takes him to far off places, fighting monsters that have long since been extinct.
Awesome. Okay. Why don't you go ahead? I'll give you the room. You can do your reading, and then afterward, we'll have questions and answers.
All righty. Tristan crouched down, slowly creeping up to the opening in the tunnel to peek at the noise's source. Eyeing around the edge, he spotted 5 ashen gray beasts that crawled about on all fours. Staring at the ghastly, eyeless faces of the seemingly skinless, muscular creatures, Tristan at once gathered what he was facing. Long, strong, agile limbs, thick with cords of muscle with the long forked tongues, suitable for lapping up blood and marrow. As he looked at the ashen gray corpse feeders, he knew them by the name from his studies, Ravanian ghouls. Shuffling backward, he turned his gaze on Mortessa, motioning for her to back away. The sorceress did so, albeit eyeing him curiously as she did. Once they reached a respectable distance, she stopped to talk to him. "What is it?" she asked. "We are in Ravania," he told her. Mortessa thought for a moment and then looked beyond Tristan. "That explains why Balkan lost track of me. To believe that we were transported to an entirely other continent is impressive. What is it exactly you are avoiding telling me?" "There is a pack of Ravanian ghouls just around the corner. There are at least 5 that I saw. They are currently gnawing at some old bones, but they will start to search around eventually." "You surely dealt with ghouls in the past. Why not rid the world of the beast and be done with it?" "1, not in the contract. 2, I have faced ghouls, not Ravanian ghouls, which are supposed to be extinct. Your contract is my safe return. What is the difference?" "Typical ghouls are natural blights on this world. Ravanian ghouls are a special strain augmented by Ravanian sorcerers. They are, in every way, much more undesirable." "Why would anyone want to make monsters more fearsome?" "I would suspect for the alchemical benefits. Why would anyone wish to charm a pair of cockatrices into defending a nest that does not exist, resulting in the deaths of 7, nearly 8 people? Well, as you said, with the ghouls, there were benefits that outweighed the potential risks, Mortessa grumbled sourly. Yes, so long as the ends justify the means, right? Do all of the cabal think the same way, or does it just happen to only be the vast majority I have met? It is the responsibility of the cabal to explore the endless possibilities of this world, Mortessa replied. And here I thought it was your responsibility to protect the people, maintain balance, cure the sick, help stave off mass starvation and typical things such as that. You are quite the idealist, Tristan Strife. That may have been why the Cabal formed centuries ago, but you and I both know that for a long time, the Cabal has possessed its own agenda. Yes, I am aware. I am sure that the countless lives lost in pursuit of your agenda were painfully aware as well. Listen, I did not come here to debate the actions of the Cabal, past, present, or future. You did not, despite your do-good ways, come here to lecture me about the moral obligations of power. You came here to fetch me for a price. If you are finished, I wish to collect what I came here for, be done with this foul place, and then be ravished in the relief of my companion. She moved past Tristan, creeping down the hall leading toward the ghouls. I am not going with you, he told her. I have no intentions of aiding you or the Cabal gain more power in your never-ending lust of it. That is fine by me, she said. I feel strong enough to carry on my own anyway. Tristan turned to walk away as Mortessa stopped in place. He moved further away slowly to allow her time to catch up without stressing her wounds. Instead, he heard a scream followed by the snarls of the ghouls. He growled in frustration as he heard Mortessa scream again. Drawing his weapon and 2 small bombs from his back pouch, Tristan charged toward the sound of distress. As he made his way around the corner, he saw the ghouls surrounding his objective. Throwing one of the bombs into the center of the pack, it burst, releasing shimmering silver-speckled dust into the air. As the ghouls coughed like cats with hairballs, Mortessa smiled, fading away. He turned his head to see the true sorceress darting down the back of the wall. She exited, moving farther into the ruins as Tristan growled angrily. Gripping the handle of his sword tightly, he charged at the ghouls, which still choked on the silver cloud. Reaching the first, Tristan swung his sword from hip to opposite shoulder, removing the creature's head. As the body dropped, twitching and convulsing, Tristan maintained his angered charge. Having lost the element of surprise, the recovering ghouls turned to face him. Tossing his second bomb, he took in a deep breath and swung downward. The bomb, striking one of the ghouls in the back, burst open, dousing all but the ghoul closest to him, which jumped aside as Tristan's blade connected. The ghoul shrieked angrily as its foreleg fell free of its body. Tristan, spinning on his heel, adjusted his grip and backslashed, raking the blade across its chest. As the second ghoul fell, Tristan, maintaining his circular arc, slashed into the chest of the third. The final ghoul leaped back, growling angrily. Planting his feet, Tristan's torso followed the path of the blade, spinning it around his back, up over his head, and then slashed right to left across his shoulder in one fluid motion. The third ghoul's head rolled from its shoulders as Tristan lunged after the fourth. This ghoul, its undivided attention on Tristan, swung at him as the final ghoul leaned on its hind legs, ready to pounce. His honed reflexes seemed to slow time. Tristan tipped his blade sideways, cutting from floor to sky. Slicing through the outstretched hand, he split it. Stepping to the side, he followed the blade's momentum. The final ghoul pounced. Following Tristan's movements with its heightened hearing, sense of smell, and ability to track heat, the eyeless beast adjusted its course, though it crashed into the back of its rearing fellow. As the 2 snarling creatures became entangled, Tristan brought his blade down upon them with all his strength, cutting through both of them in one stroke. Sweat dripping from his brow, he breathed easily, controlling his heart rate. Standing up straight, he heard something shuffle behind him. Quickly spinning himself, he slashed too slowly as the second ghoul sprang onto him. Angling his sword into the gap between them, he felt his blade sinking into flesh as he was tackled to the ground. Maintaining his grip on the sword handle with his right hand, he reached out with his left. Pulling in his legs as he fell, he felt the beast roll over top of him. Rolling alongside the heavy sack of flesh, Tristan groaned after striking the back of his head on the first rotation and his shoulder upon the second before coming to a stop. The second cut was too shallow, he chided himself. Cannot afford to be so sloppy. Looking up to where the ghoul had landed, he stared at the top of his hilt. His blade, having pierced through the center of the ghoul's face, caused its neck to twist more than once around during their tumble. Momentarily releasing his grip on his sword, he grimaced, falling back to the ground as the left side of his body ignited in flames. He placed his hand to his left shoulder, feeling the warm, sticky fluid flowing from it. With his right hand, he reached behind his back and opened his tonic pouch. Reaching in, he quickly found the vial that he needed, recognizing it from its rounded edges and square top stopper. Leaning himself against his fallen foe, he slowly lifted his shirt over his abdomen and past his chest. Taking a small swig of the tonic, he placed the wadded-up shirt in his mouth and gripped it with his teeth. Looking down, he saw 5 thin holes where the ghoul had pierced him. From his shoulder to his middle ribs, the ghoul's wide hands had grabbed onto him, sharp, jagged claws impaling him. Already squinting his eyes, he poured some of the vial's contents into his first wound. He growled into his cloth gag as his wound foamed and hissed. As he moved to his other injuries, his jaw locked on the bundle. After all 5 wounds hissed and spat, frothing white foam, he released his gag. The first to disinfect, he recited the lessons of his youth. Sliding the vial back in its proper place, he grabbed another square stoppered vial, this one a perfectly formed cylinder. Bringing the cork to his mouth, he bit into it, pulling the stopper free. Taking in a deep breath, he tapped the vial, filled with honey-like fluid, dripping a small amount into each of his injuries. And the second seals and recovers, he groaned, placing the stopper back in the vial and returning it to its rightful place. Securing the clasp on his pouch, he fought against gravity to find his feet. Upright once more, he reached down and pulled his weapon free of the creature's skull. Flicking the monster's blood from his blade, he returned it to its sheath. With the sword clicking in place, Tristan turned his eyes to the doorway Mortessa fled through. Doing his best to ignore the pain in his side, Tristan followed Mortessa's tracks at a light jog. Moving through several halls, he saw several traps the cunning sorceress had either avoided or managed to disarm. He smiled at her quick wit until he came upon evidence that she had indeed encountered a small amount of trouble. That was my segment.
Excellent. Very well done. Everybody, feel free to turn on your microphones. If you have any questions or comments for Jacob, now's the time. Feel free. Anyone?
So this is a series. How many are? This is a straight series. How many are in the series?
This is currently the first. Book 2 will be out in the spring.
Okay.
And that will actually follow the sons of Tristan Strife.
Okay. It's a. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Angela.
I just want to compliment your writing. I loved how slowly you let out the moments in the scene, and I just was sitting. I mean, it's why I like reading better than watching a movie, but it was, I'm just staring off, imagining it, and it was really, I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Super visual.
There's a.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'm sorry.
No, I did as well. There are elements of a lot of different books that I've read from the past. When you started reading, I immediately was reminded of an ancient book that I have somewhere called Night World, but not the Night World series, but an old book called Night World. But I like the way that you built, and I like the trickery that was built in between. It was very good.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions? So one of the things that I love most about helping you with the edit on this work, Jacob, is that I have a dear friend who is a professional Renaissance combat expert. He is the director of the Pennsylvania Renaissance Festival, and he's done a bunch of other stuff. But when I sent him some patches, because I wanted to make sure that what we were doing was what we were doing, he's like, so does this guy work in the trade? Because he's getting everything right. So I wanted to offer that to you, and that one of the things I love best about this scene is that every moment of this encounter is precisely written, and it absolutely got me into the moment, and I felt like I was standing in that cave as a spider on the wall watching this happen. It was very, very cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I liked it as well for that. As you can probably guess, I enjoy swordplay.
Yes.
Those are the little ones, though. The big ones are put away.
Yeah, so I loved reading the book for that, and I'm looking forward to reading the next book in the series. And I I love that you're so diverse in your writing. And the last book I read of yours was a Viking tale, and this is a Renaissance tale. So I'm really curious what I know that you're staying within an overall genre theme, but what made you go from Viking to Renaissance?
Well, actually, the first series I wrote is a Renaissance piece, and it delves more into kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons type of progression. And this one was actually written. What I just read from was written before Unbound.
Okay, yeah, that's what I
Actually
thought.
transitioned from Renaissance to Vikings,
Oh.
but which really weird story, I guess. But Unbound was actually supposed to be a sci-fi space opera initially, and it just fit better with Vikings, so we went with Vikings.
Wow. So that would be a case of the characters had a better plan than you did?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of Viking sci-fi. Ooh, Viking explorers in space. Yeah, I'm liking it.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Jacob?
What era
Angela?
would you write next? I'm curious.
Well, Blood in the Rain Part 2 is going to be coming out here in the next few weeks, and that's a modern piece.
Oh.
Brother Strife is directly connected to the passage I just read. Unbound, well, Betrayer, the title of Unbound Part 2, will be my second book for next year, which will be back in the Viking era.
It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Too awesome.
Ashlyn wants to show off her hoodie.
Oh, okay. Show us, Ashlyn.
Show us.
Can you see it? It's,
You get the stage.
what's it say, Ashlyn?
It says,
Blood
Blood
in
in
the
the Rain
Rain.
2. Turn so they can see the back. You guys stand up on your pedestal. So this
There
is
we
actually
go.
the back from the back cover of the book.
Wow.
It says, wash away their sins, wash away their pain, wash it all away like blood in the rain.
I like it.
A prayer that the main
Oh.
character uses from time to time.
Thank you, Ashlyn.
That was very good. You were a very good model.
Mhm. That sounds
Um,
like a song.
Yeah. So are there any genres past Betrayer and Brother Strife that you would touch on aside from these? I mean, is there a tickler in the back of your brain that says, oh, after I get this done, I'm going to try this new thing?
Yes. I'm currently 122 pages into kind of a fairy tale untold is what it's called. And
Okay.
I'm kind of spinning some of the stereotypes of a fairy tale on their head and playing with those ideas. I got the idea from the book Uprooted by Naomi Novik.
Okay.
Not remotely connected, however, it was a fantastic idea and I wanted to try it too. Other than that, what I'm currently penning in my journal right now is I have one piece that is a weird, but it's geared towards children, but it's a dystopian, futuristic title after a nuclear holocaust.
For children.
Yes.
That's going to be an interesting challenge.
If anyone's familiar with like Studio Ghibli, I'd compare it to kind of like a Castle in the Sky in reverse.
Okay.
So instead of finding the castle in the sky, they're trying to leave the castle in the sky and trying to rediscover what's left of humanity 5,000 years after this war. Or
Wow.
500 years, I apologize, nuclear half-life.
I'm really curious to see how you're going to present that for a young audience.
I'll figure it out.
I have no doubt. I'm just
Time
super
and
curious
enough
about
lessons.
it.
We'll get there.
Does anybody else have questions for Jacob? I don't want to dominate the conversation. No? Okay, the other thing I wanted to touch on tonight was after going through the manuscript with you on this edit, and folks, it's 500 pages. I saw you when you came to the studio last, and you were actually writing longhand. Do you write everything you do longhand?
Usually the initial draft, yes.
So these initial 500 pages, the first draft you did longhand?
Probably was 3 notebooks is all, but yes.
That's amazing to me.
But it's, I don't know, it's, I mean, like I said in one of your polls, is I kind of look at the writing process like a jigsaw puzzle. So I start
Mhm.
on the outer edges. Sometimes pieces of the picture come together sooner than others, and I work my way through the story that way. So, I mean, even though it's 500 pages typed in the book, it might have only been 200-300 pages initially. And then as I go through and I put the rest of the pieces together and assemble them in the greater portrait, it ended up becoming the monstrosity that it is.
Well, it's a
140 pages.
very cohesive monstrosity. So congratulations. Anybody else have questions, comments? Come on, guys. Okay, Andrew, I know you've got questions.
I always have lots of questions.
I know you do.
So, you know, you touched on ghouls in this particular volume. I mean, what type of otherworldly creatures does your hero run into?
Well, in this particular book, it's mostly the corruption of men. There will be other creatures that I use. And what I ended up doing is when I was going through doing the research for Blood in the Rain, which dealt with a lot of old lore, old creation myths, whatnot, the pieces I didn't feel fit in with that universe are what spilled over into this one. If that answers your question at all.
Well, it kind of does, but so most of your research then, or most of the creatures are bound to old lore or old legends, and or are some of them unique to your writing?
Many will come from old lore. I do have some that I've taken liberties with. I've created my own in a couple of instances. But mostly in the Amaranthine series, it's the overall series is called The Tales of Anon. Mostly sticking with more, I don't know if earthly threats is the appropriate term, but cockatrice, animalistic threats, I guess would be the way to put it. Where Blood in the Rain, I have like pestas, I have strigas, some of the other things that are lesser known. I deal more with the bestial nature of these lore in Tales of Anon.
Okay, and so your ghouls seem to have some sentience, but do they have more than just that, or are they mindless beasts?
I would compare them to maybe a pack of rabid wolves. So there is some cohesion in their actions. They have patterns that they follow. They build dens. They build nests. Okay. At the end of the day, they're hungry wild animals.
Yeah, I'm just curious because there are so many ways to approach it, and being a monster, I'm fascinated by monsters.
Well, and ghouls, as they stand in Blood in the Rain, come from a different part of that lore as well, where they are, in a sense, kind of failed thralls for some of the other creatures. They kind of act as more like a servant capacity. But there's so many different things you can pull from when you discuss ghouls. So I was actually able to use different parts of that in both series.
Absolutely. One of the things that I thought was really interesting and certainly tugged at my heartstrings in this book was the relationship with Tristan and his mare. This horse has almost super sentientness about her. I mean, I love the way that you give her voice almost. she never actually speaks, but in how you have her move and how you have her interact energetically with Tristan, the main character, I thought was tremendously incredible. And being an equestrian, I was really moved by that piece. So I wanted to congratulate you on building that relationship.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jacob?
Not at this time.
Okay.
After I read them, I will have them. So be ready when you come back.
We'll be waiting.
Well, and that's exactly why we're doing it this way. Everybody gets an opportunity to share their work, and then we all have a chance to delve into the work, learn more about it, and then come back and have a deeper discussion. So that's the plan. Jacob, thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing your work with us and sharing your family with us. They're fabulous.
Thank you for having us.
I love having you guys on every time I can. Thank you, Ashlyn, for all your help. And we will see you guys next time. So this has been a conversation with Jacob Bullen. You can find his work on our Facebook page right after this. And we'll post links where you can find his work and discover more about him. And we will be back again throughout the month. Every day this month, we have all kinds of great conversations going on with authors about books and writing processes and a whole bunch of other fun stuff, contests and games and just super fun stuff on the Pages Promotions Virtual Book Festival, a production of Indie Reads TV. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming. Look at him, he's smiling, yay.
Yay.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming. Have a nice night.
Happy Tuesday the 13th.
Yes.
Thank you.